I think I have a pretty good idea of what you are thinking. When the word Russia comes up, your mind probably goes straight to Moscow. Or perhaps the historic streets of St. Petersburg. You might imagine deep snow. Or maybe grand imperial palaces. And yes, we are certainly going to explore all of those things later on in this video. But here at Vistas Revealed, if those images are the extent of your knowledge about Russia, you are in for a massive surprise. Because this country is absolutely nothing like what you expect. It contains a lake that has been around longer than the human race, a highway constructed by prisoners that locals are afraid to finish, and a mountain peak that towers over everything else in Europe. A place surrounded by ancient, empty tombs cut directly into the cliffside. In this video, we are going to walk you through a collection of facts that will blow your mind. The sort of things that make you rethink everything you assumed was true. Then, we will take a journey through the most incredible locations in Russia, beginning in the wild Far East and winding our way back to where most travelers usually start. You might think you understand the concept of big, but Russia gives that word a whole new meaning. This is a nation so incredibly vast that its borders reach both the Pacific Ocean and the Baltic Sea, touching the freezing Arctic Ocean and the warm Caspian Sea. It stretches across a staggering 11 time zones. Think about this. When the sun is coming up at 8:30 a.m., in one Russian town, it is already going down in another part of the country on the very same day. And while you are sitting down for breakfast in one region, someone else is getting ready for bed thousands of kilometers away. And yet, you are both in the exact same country. However, it isn't just the sheer scale that is overwhelming. It is what lies inside that massive territory. Up in the far north, there are settlements where winter hangs on for 9 months of the year and the sunlight vanishes entirely for weeks at a time. In those harsh environments, residents actually paint their window frames with bright, warm colors, just to trick their brains into feeling a bit of sunshine. And then, there is a location so intensely cold that you can toss a cup of boiling water into the air and watch it turn into snow crystals before it even touches the ground. This isn't an urban legend. This is daily life in Oymyakon. Recognized as one of the coldest permanently inhabited spots on the planet. The temperatures here can plummet to a bone-chilling 71 degrees C or 95 degrees CF. In the deepest part of winter, birds have been known to freeze while in midair. Your eyelashes can turn into tiny icicles in seconds. Batteries drain and die within minutes. The locals actually leave their car engines running all day long, because if they turn them off, the engine block might freeze and the car may never start again. But then, if you travel just a few thousand kilometers to the south, you enter a completely different universe. In the region known as Kalmykia, you will discover Buddhist temples standing tall on flat, golden grasslands. The people living here speak their own distinct language. They observe Tibetan religious traditions, and they practice silent walking meditation in serene sand gardens. There's even a massive public square dedicated entirely to the game of chess. No, I am serious. The capital city of Kalmykia once played host to the World Chess Championship. The former president of this region was so incredibly obsessed with the game that he actually made it a mandatory subject in schools. In a totally different part of Russia, you can find street signs written in Yiddish. That is not a mistake. In the Jewish Autonomous Region, which was established during the Stalin era, you can still see signage in both the Russian Cyrillic alphabet and Hebrew script. It remains as a ghost of a utopian idea that never quite became reality. But the surprises do not end there. Russia possesses a network of secret cities. During the height of the Cold War, dozens of towns were completely erased from public maps. They had no names. They officially did not exist. The people who lived inside them carried special identification papers and were not allowed to leave without explicit government permission. Many of these settlements were constructed around nuclear research facilities, rocket manufacturing plants, or chemical testing sites. Some of them remain closed to outsiders to this very day. And here is the detail that almost nobody discusses. The Trans-Siberian Railway, the single longest train line on the planet, quietly rolls past these ghost towns. The track stretches out for nearly 9,300 kilometers, roughly 800 miles, connecting Moscow all the way to Vladivostok. To give you some perspective on that distance, it is like taking a train from New York City to Los Angeles and then keeping going all the way to Anchorage, Alaska. But what is even more surreal is this fact. There is a specific town in Russia where you can walk from the continent of Asia into Europe in less than 2 minutes. A simple pedestrian bridge over a narrow river marks the official dividing line between the two continents. On one bank, you are in Asia. On the other bank, you are in Europe. Travelers flock here just to take selfies standing with one foot in each part of the world. And if you think that is strange, wait until you hear this story. Russia once attempted to drill a hole all the way to the center of the Earth. Back in the 1970s, Soviet scientists started boring a massive hole on the Kola Peninsula. They continued drilling for over 20 years, eventually reaching a depth of 12,262 meters. That is about 40,230 feet, or more than 7.6 miles straight down into the crust. Down there, they found ancient microscopic fossils, previously unknown forms of bacteria, and temperatures that were so scorching hot that their metal equipment began to warp and melt. Then, one day, they simply stopped. The entire project was abandoned without any warning. The site is still there today, capped by a heavy, rusted metal lid. No explanation was given, no answers were provided. Now, picture this scene. In certain parts of Russia, entire lakes actually glow in the dark. This isn't something from a sci-fi movie. During the late summer, specific remote lakes start to shimmer with a blue bioluminescence caused by rare microorganisms in the water. The locals refer to them as living lights. This phenomenon appears for only a few days every year. And then it vanishes. Nobody knows exactly when it will happen, or where the lights will return next. Even time itself behaves differently here. There is a region of Russia so isolated that there are no official time zones. The people there just operate on Moscow time, because it is simpler than trying to sync their clocks with the rest of the country. Airplanes, trains, and schools, they all run on a schedule based on a city thousands of kilometers away. And what about space exploration? Russia was, of course, the first nation to send a human being into orbit. But here is something that is less commonly known. In the 1980s, they also attempted to build a reusable space shuttle named Buran. The Soviet shuttle flew exactly once, performing perfectly, and it landed automatically without a single crew member on board. Then, the funding dried up. The project was buried, and the actual spacecraft now sits gathering dust, completely abandoned. You could make the argument that Russia is a land defined by extremes, geographically speaking, politically speaking, and culturally. But perhaps it isn't really about extremes. Maybe it is about contradictions. A place where you can ride a camel in the southern deserts and drive a dog sled in the frozen north. Where Buddhist monks meditate in absolute frozen silence while submarines patrol deep beneath the Arctic ice. Where ancient tribal traditions, Cold War mysteries, and advanced space technology all coexist within the same borders. This is Russia. Not the version you see in travel brochures, the one that bends logic, defies your expectations, and refuses to be summed up by a single photograph. And here on Vistas Revealed, we are just getting started. Now that you have seen what is hiding behind the curtain, it is time to travel across Russia, location by location, beginning in the Far East and finishing up in the cities you thought you already knew. There is no road that leads to this place, no railway tracks, no highways, just pure wilderness, volcanoes, and silence. Kamchatka is one of the most remote and untouched regions on the entire Earth, and the vast majority of Russians have never even visited it. To get there, you have to fly. You soar over thousands of kilometers of empty terrain. And when you finally land, you will feel like you have touched down on a different planet. This peninsula is home to more than 300 volcanoes, and 29 of them are still active today. Mount Klyuchevskaya, the highest of them all, rises 4,750 meters. That is over 15,580 feet. And it is still rumbling. Molten lava glows underneath the snow and ice. Clouds of ash stretch out for kilometers across the sky. But that isn't even the strangest part. Deep in the center of Kamchatka lies the Valley of Geysers, the second largest concentration of geysers found anywhere in the world. Boiling pools of water, hissing steam vents, massive explosions of vapor. And yet, there are barely any tourists. Why? Because you can only reach it by helicopter. This is not a destination for large crowds. It is a place where grizzly bears are more common than people, and where the earth literally breathes beneath your boots. And here is the crazy thing. Despite being one of Russia's most spectacular natural wonders, Kamchatka isn't even considered a national symbol. It is a secret world, hiding right there in plain sight. But not every remote place in Russia is peaceful. Some locations carry scars that you cannot see on a map. You can only feel them when you travel the road. They call it the Road of Bones, and once you learn the reason why, you will never forget it. Officially, it is known as the R-54 Kolyma Highway, but unofficially, it is a massive grave stretching across 2,000 kilometers, roughly 1,240 miles of the Siberian wilderness. It was constructed during Stalin's rule by Gulag prisoners throughout the 1930s and 40s. Thousands of people died in the brutal freezing cold, and because the ground was permafrost, digging graves was impossible. So, the bodies were simply poured into the road's foundations. To this day, human remains are still discovered along the route. And yet, people still drive on it. Trucks, delivery vans, and even adventurous road trippers use it. But here's the catch. If your vehicle breaks down out here, you are hundreds of kilometers away from any help. There is no cell signal. There are no villages, just wolves and the howling wind. This is not simply a road. It is a scar on the land, a symbol of survival, suffering, and silence. But Siberia does not end there. Moving deeper inland, nature has sculpted its own cathedral, rising high above one of the oldest rivers in the world. At first glance, they look fake. They seem too perfect, too symmetrical to be natural. But these massive stone spires are completely real. and they line the banks of the Lena River in eastern Siberia for tens of kilometers. They are known as the Lena Pillars, natural towers formed from limestone, with some reaching heights of 300 meters, or nearly 1,000 feet. And they seem to rise out of nowhere. No roads lead to this spot. To witness them, you must sail up the Lena River, passing through pristine wilderness. There are no cities nearby, no noise pollution, just the slow, steady pulse of the ancient water. Scientists estimate that these pillars began to form 500 million years ago, during the Cambrian era, and yet they are still standing, untouched, as if they are waiting for something. In the winter months, they are shrouded in ice fog. In the summer, golden sunlight spills through the cracks in the stone. And sometimes, just for a fleeting moment, they echo. It is as if the stone itself remembers everything. Still, almost nobody visits. There are no crowds here, no lines of tour buses, just the cliffs and the passage of time. Further to the south, however, something even stranger rises up from the forest floor. Not cliffs, not rock formations, sand. A desert in the middle of Siberia? It sounds like a joke. But it is absolutely real. The Kara Sands are a patch of golden sand dunes covering about 50 square kilometers, roughly 19 square miles, completely surrounded by snow-capped mountains and dense taiga forest. Nobody knows for sure exactly how they got there. Some theories suggest ancient winds pushed sediment from a lake that dried up long ago. Others claim it is just another Russian anomaly, a place that exists simply because it shouldn't. The temperature here can swing wildly in the winter. You can actually hike through the sand barefoot while looking at glaciers in the distance. There is no other desert like this anywhere on Earth. No camels, no palm trees, just silence, and the sound of the wind reshaping the past. But just beyond these dunes, the land begins to rise up again, not with sand, but with stone. Climbers refer to them simply as the pillars. But these aren't ruins of a city. They are not even man-made. The Stolby are giant volcanic rock formations, vertical towers made of basalt and granite, some rising over 100 meters high, about 30 feet, hidden deep in the taiga near the city of Krasnoyarsk. But here is the wild part. The locals don't just visit these rocks. They climb them without using any ropes. It is a local tradition, a point of immense pride. They call themselves Stolbists, and they pass down secret climbing routes from generation to generation. There are caves here as well, and narrow stone corridors where your shoulders brush against both walls. There are even legends, stories about shamans who once lived among these cliffs. But what about the tourists? Most of them stay on the marked trails, because getting lost out here means wandering through hundreds of square kilometers of forest with absolutely no cell signal. But once you leave the cliffs behind and follow the rivers eastward, the forest gives way to something else entirely, a body of water so ancient it defies imagination. Imagine a lake so old, it dates back to before modern humans existed. Lake Baikal is over 25 million years old. It is the deepest lake on Earth, reaching a depth of 1,642 meters. That is deeper than some trenches in the ocean, and it holds more fresh water than all the Great Lakes of North America combined. But this lake is more than just deep. It is alive. Baikal is home to over 2,000 unique species, including a freshwater seal that is found nowhere else on the planet. Its waters are so incredibly clear that in the winter, you can see 40 meters, 130 feet straight down through the ice. And the ice itself? It cracks, loudly. The lake sings, emitting deep, echoing booms that sound like something straight out of a science fiction movie. In the summer, Baikal is a stunning turquoise color. In the winter, it transforms into a frozen glass road stretching all the way to the horizon. People have tried to measure its bottom. Some say we still haven't truly found it. Others believe it hides more than just depth. But if you move further south, you will find a very different kind of wonder. One of mountains, meadows, and air so pure it feels completely untouched. Tucked away in the southern heart of Siberia lies one of Russia's best-kept secrets, the Altai Mountains, where the Russian border meets Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and China, are an alpine world of turquoise lakes, wild rushing rivers, and meadows that bloom for only a few short weeks each year. There are no mega resorts here, no mass tourism industry, just glaciers, eagles, and silence. This is where you will find the Katun River, icy blue and crashing through granite canyons, where shepherds still live in traditional yurts, grazing their yaks and horses just as their ancestors did. And where the night sky is so clear, you can see the Milky Way stretching from one side of the horizon to the other. The highest peak, Mount Belukha, rises 4,506 meters, or 14,784 feet, and is considered sacred by the local indigenous peoples. They say it holds spiritual energy and protects the balance of the earth. But Altai is more than just mountains. It is filled with legends and mystery. Thousands of ancient petroglyphs are etched into the cliffsides, depicting scenes of hunting, rituals, and cosmic symbols. You will also find Scythian burial mounds dating back over 2,500 years, some of them still untouched. Some believe Altai is the real location of Shambhala, a mythical hidden kingdom of peace and wisdom. Altai doesn't feel like it belongs to modern times. It feels borrowed from a myth and barely holding on to reality. Siberia is vast, and in most of it, stone is a rare material. But high above the Irtysh River, in the heart of western Siberia, stands something unexpected. The Tobolsk Kremlin, the only stone fortress of its kind in this entire part of Russia. Its white towers gleam brightly against the vast sky. Its cathedral domes shine with gold under the sun. But what makes this place truly striking isn't just the architecture itself, it is the deep history buried beneath it. Tobolsk was once the undisputed capital of the Russian East. It was a strategic stronghold, a vital cultural hub. It was the place where Moscow's power extended out into the wild frontier. Merchants arrived here all the way from China and Persia to trade. Prisoners were sent here from European courts to serve their sentences. Even Fyodor Dostoevsky, one of Russia's greatest writers, passed through this very city as a convict on his way to hard labor. You can walk along the ramparts today, hear the echo of boots on the cobblestones, and imagine the years ticking slowly by. The bitter, freezing winters. The crackling fires keeping the cold at bay. The cold, unforgiving stone walls. Inside the Kremlin grounds, you will find a unique blend of Orthodox spirituality and tough Siberian resilience. It is a place that feels like both a military fortress and a holy sanctuary. And once you leave its snowy silence behind, the line between Europe and Asia finally comes into view, not metaphorically, but literally. Yekaterinburg is the line. It sits right on the jagged edge of two continents, a city where you can walk from Europe into Asia in less than 60 seconds. There is even a granite monument there explicitly marking the divide. It is simple, quiet, but incredibly symbolic. The city skyline is sleek and modern. Skyscrapers shine in glass and steel. Trendy cafes line the riverbanks. The streets are filled with students, musicians, and young creatives. And yet, the shadows of history stretch long here. In 1918, this is the place where Tsar Nicholas II and his entire family were executed, an event that ended over 300 years of Romanov rule. Today, the site is marked by a church, burning candles, and constant remembrance. Pilgrims visit the site year-round. The locals never forget what happened here. There is a tension in Yekaterinburg, but it isn't negative. It is creative tension. The city has become a hotspot for contemporary art, experimental theater, and underground music scenes. It is also a major tech hub. Some people even call it Russia's Silicon Ural. But Yekaterinburg is still something else, a gateway. It is the last major city before the land becomes wilder again and the roads turn toward the mountains. The Ural Mountains aren't dramatic in the same way the Alps are. They don't tower over you, they don't shock you with their height, but they divide worlds, stretching for over 2,500 kilometers. From the Arctic Ocean in the north, down to the Kazakh steppe in the south, they form the ancient boundary between Europe and Asia. Geologically, they are over 250 million years old. They hold some of the oldest rocks on Earth and some of the rarest minerals, including emeralds, topaz, and even gold. But the Urals are more than just stone. They are the backdrop to some of Russia's most enduring mysteries. In 1959, 9 hikers died under chilling and unexplained circumstances in a place now known as the Dyatlov Pass. To this day, theories about what happened range from an avalanche to secret military experiments to something else entirely. The Urals are also home to dense forests, deep caves, and remote villages where old traditions still persist, and where folklore often blurs into lived reality. They aren't flashy mountains, but they are ancient, solid, enduring. Crossing them feels symbolic, like passing through a hidden gate in the middle of a forest. And when you descend on the other side, something unexpected awaits you, a Buddhist capital, located right in the heart of European Russia. It is not what you expect to see. You are deep in southern Russia, surrounded by endless flatlands, and suddenly, golden domes rise over the horizon. Prayer flags flutter in the breeze. A stupa gleams in the sun. Welcome to Elista, the capital of Kalmykia, the only Buddhist majority region in all of Europe. The people here are descendants of Mongol tribes who migrated west from Central Asia hundreds of years ago. And even today, you can feel the echo of their nomadic past in everything. The language, the rituals, and the way the wind moves across the steppe. Elista is calm, bright, slightly surreal. In the city center stands the golden abode of Shakyamuni Buddha, the largest Buddhist temple in Russia. Inside, monks chant prayers in Tibetan. Visitors spin massive golden prayer wheels. And just outside, you will find a chess park. Yes, an actual park dedicated entirely to chess. That is because Kalmykia's former president was not only a Buddhist, he was also a chess grandmaster. He made chess mandatory in schools and built a whole district called Chess City, designed to host global tournaments. It is peaceful here, but also quietly powerful. A reminder that Russia isn't just one culture, it is many cultures. And sometimes, the most surprising places are the most serene. If you landed here blindfolded, you would never guess you were in Russia. Sochi sits on the coast of the Black Sea. wrapped in palm trees, fig trees, and the scent of salt and citrus. In summer, the beaches are packed. The air is hot and humid. Locals sip iced coffee in seaside cafes. It feels more like the Mediterranean than the former Soviet Union. But Sochi isn't just a beach town. Just 50 kilometers inland, about 30 miles, the land rises into snow-covered peaks. This is one of the few places on Earth where you can swim in the morning and ski in the afternoon. In 2014, Sochi hosted the Winter Olympics, and the world got a glimpse of what Russia looks like when it is sunny, colorful, and full of life. There is a modern side too: the Olympic Park, the Formula One circuit, and massive resorts. But take a turn down a quiet street and you will find wooden homes covered in vines, old fruit markets, and hiking trails that lead to hidden waterfalls. Sochi is a contradiction: hot and cold, Soviet and subtropical. And once you leave the coast behind, the road turns steep, climbing into the high Caucasus where Russia reaches for the sky. It doesn't look real at first. Mount Elbrus rises above the Caucasus like a sleeping titan, snow-covered, silent, and enormous. At 5,640 meters, that is 18,500 feet, it is the tallest mountain in Europe, higher than Mont Blanc, and one of the 7 summits of the world. But here is the twist: Elbrus is actually a dormant volcano. Its twin peaks were formed by long, cooled lava, and even now, there is geothermal heat beneath the glaciers. Climbers come from around the globe to reach the summit. It isn't the steepest climb, but it is dangerous because of the altitude. Many underestimate it. Some do not come back, yet it draws people in. From Soviet military expeditions to modern-day adventurers, Elbrus has become a symbol of endurance and pride. It even appears in old propaganda posters, towering over brave mountaineers wrapped in red flags. Below the mountain, you will find quiet villages, ancient stone towers, and winding roads that cling to the cliffsides. Shepherds guide their flocks through alpine pastures. Hot springs bubble up from the ground. It feels more like Georgia or Azerbaijan, but you are still in Russia. Elbrus is massive, mystical, and unpredictable, and hidden in its shadow is one of the strangest burial sites in the world. High in the mountains of North Ossetia, you round a bend in the road and everything goes quiet. Stone buildings, dozens of them, sit perched on the slope. They look like tiny houses or beehives made of bone. This is Dargavs, known as the City of the Dead. It is one of Russia's most mysterious and haunting places. Each structure is a burial crypt, some built over 400 years ago. Inside, archaeologists have found skeletons lying in wooden boats, even though there is no navigable river anywhere nearby. Some believe the boats were meant for the afterlife. Locals used to fear the place. A legend said that anyone who entered would never return. Even today, people approach it with quiet reverence. The layout is symmetrical, almost architectural, like a forgotten village for ghosts. Above, the Caucasus peaks loom, shrouded in mist. Below, the valley spreads out like an ancient canvas. There are no fences, no tickets, no signs, just you and the dead. But as you leave and descend toward the Caspian Sea, you begin to sense time itself shifting, peeling back toward an even older civilization. At Russia's southern edge, where mountains slope into the Caspian Sea, lies a city few outsiders know, yet it may be one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Welcome to Derbent. Settled for over 5,000 years, Derbent sits at the narrowest pass between the Caucasus Mountains and the sea, a strategic choke point. That is why empires fought for it: the Persians, Arabs, Mongols, Ottomans, and Russians. The city's defining feature is its ancient wall, built by the Sassanid Empire in the 6th century. It stretches from the mountain ridge all the way down to the water, a stone gate across continents. Inside, Derbent is a maze of stone alleys, minarets, old synagogues, and Armenian churches. It is a place where religions intertwine and cultures blend. You will hear Persian words in the local dialect, eat flatbread cooked in clay ovens, and see architecture that feels more like Iran than Russia. Markets overflow with spices, dried fruits, and pomegranates. In the old citadel, sunlight hits weathered stone that has seen centuries of invasions, trade, and prayer. Derbent isn't loud, it is layered, and as you head north again, following the rhythm of history, you will reach Russia's most sacred river, wide, slow, and eternal. Some rivers rush. The Volga moves slowly, with gravity, with memory. At 3,500 kilometers, or about 2,194 miles, it is the longest river in Europe. But it isn't just long, it is legendary. The Volga flows through the heart of Russia. From the Valdai Hills northwest of Moscow, through historic cities like Kazan, Nizhny Novgorod, and Volgograd, before spilling into the Caspian Sea. It has been called Mother Volga, a symbol of national identity. It appears in poetry, in song, in war stories. Soldiers crossed it, traders sailed it, empires depended on it. Even today, it feeds millions of people, provides energy through hydroelectric dams, and connects vast regions by water. In summer, cruise ships drift past golden churches and wooden villages. In winter, the river freezes solid and becomes a silent highway of ice. Fishermen drill holes through the surface. Families gather for picnics on the snowy banks. The air smells of pine and firewood. The Volga is calm, but beneath that surface flow centuries of memory, both beautiful and brutal. And just beyond its upper reaches lies a city where east meets west in a single glance. From a distance, it looks like a Russian city. Onion domes, neoclassical facades, snowy boulevards. But then you see it, a towering white mosque, glowing blue at the top, framed by fortress walls. This is Kazan, the capital of Tatarstan and one of the most culturally layered cities in Russia. Here, Islam and Orthodoxy coexist side by side. You will hear both Russian and Tatar spoken on the streets. You will eat beef pilaf, flatbreads, and dumplings filled with herbs and spice. At the center of it all is the Kazan Kremlin, a UNESCO World Heritage Site with a Russian Orthodox cathedral on one side and the stunning Kul Sharif Mosque on the other. It feels like East and West are meeting in real time. And that isn't just symbolism, it is lived experience. This city has been shaped by Mongol Khans, Russian Tsars, and Soviet commissars. Each left a mark. Kazan is modern too, a university town, a sports capital, a tech hub. But what makes it unforgettable is the way it carries multiple identities at once, effortlessly. And as you leave the city behind, the land opens into rolling countryside. There, hidden in quiet corners, Russia's medieval past still lives on, untouched by time. No skyscrapers, no highways, not even a single apartment block. Suzdal feels like stepping into a fairy tale. A quiet town of wooden houses, grazing cows, and golden dome churches that seem to float above the landscape. It is part of Russia's Golden Ring, a cluster of ancient towns northeast of Moscow, each telling its own chapter of Russian history. But Suzdal is special. It has over 30 churches, 5 monasteries, and a Kremlin, all packed into a town with fewer than 10,000 people. Here, the air smells of smoke from wood-fired stoves. Horses pull carriages through the snow in winter. And in summer, wildflowers bloom around stone walls built centuries ago. The town was once meant to become the spiritual center of Russia, but it was bypassed by railroads and factories, and because of that, it stayed frozen in time. No neon signs, no shopping malls, just silence, history, and beauty. And just when you think it can't get more serene, you head west to another holy place. One still active, still alive, and still full of pilgrims. The gold domes shimmer for miles away. Set against deep green pine forests, the Trinity Lavra of St. Teen's sectors, Sergius rises like a dream. This is Sergiev Posad, home to the most important monastery in the Russian Orthodox Church and one of the most revered pilgrimage sites in the country. Founded in the 14th century by St. Sergius of Radonej, it has survived invasions, revolutions, and repression. Through it all, the monks never stopped praying. Inside, you will find icons painted by Andrei Rublev, the most famous iconographer in Russian history. You will hear bells echoing through stone courtyards, and if you stay long enough, you may hear the deep chants of the monastic choir, rising and falling like waves. Pilgrims come to kiss the relics of saints. Others come for peace, and some just come to watch the light move across ancient frescoes. The atmosphere is both grand and intimate, sacred, but still accessible. And as you leave the quiet of the monastery, the pace of the world speeds up. Because just an hour down the road, the capital begins. There is no soft entrance to Moscow. The city doesn't unfold. It explodes with color, size, and speed. Red Square, the Kremlin, St. Basil's Cathedral. It is iconic, yes, but that is just the surface. Moscow is a city of layers. Underneath the churches and palaces is a Soviet metro system so ornate it looks like a palace itself. And above it all, 7 Stalinist skyscrapers pierce the sky. Towering, symmetrical, defiant. But it isn't all old power. New Moscow is fast, loud, hyper-modern. Glass towers rise in the business district. Coffee shops fill every corner. Tech startups buzz through co-working spaces. And then, you turn a corner and find a 19th century courtyard covered in ivy. A poet's statue. A woman playing violin. A market selling homemade jam. That is Moscow. It isn't one city. It is 10 cities stacked on top of each other, each with its own rhythm. And just when you think you have grasped it, a bullet train takes you 700 kilometers northwest, nearly 435 miles, to a city built not by nature but by vision. If Moscow is the heart of power, then St. Petersburg is the soul of poetry. Built by Peter the Great in the 1700s, this city was designed to rival Europe's great capitals, and in many ways, it succeeded. Canals crisscross the center like a frozen Venice. Palaces line the waterfront. Bridges rise and fall each night to let ships pass through. The architecture here is imperial. Wide avenues, pastel facades, and glittering gold leaf. But the emotion? It runs deeper. This is where Dostoevsky walked, where Tchaikovsky composed, where revolutions were born. The Hermitage Museum, once the Winter Palace, holds over 3 million works of art, from Rembrandt to Da Vinci. At night, the city glows. In summer, the sky never darkens. It is called the White Nights, when the sun barely dips below the horizon. St. Petersburg is elegance, nostalgia, and resistance, all at once. And beyond its borders, the land turns quiet again, but beauty still waits in the north. It was built to impress, and it still does. Peterhof Palace, often called the Russian Versailles, was the personal dream of Peter the Great. He wanted to show the world that Russia wasn't just powerful, it was refined. Set on the Gulf of Finland, just outside St. Petersburg, Peterhof is a palace, but also a fountain kingdom. The central cascade drops from the palace steps like a waterfall of gold. Dozens of gilded statues spit water into the air. And below, the Grand Canal stretches nearly 400 meters, or over 1,300 feet, toward the sea. But here is the secret. Most of the fountains work without a single pump. They are powered entirely by gravity, an 18th century engineering miracle. Walk through the lower gardens and you will find trick fountains hidden in hedges. Designed to surprise guests with sudden sprays of water, it is playful, lavish, ridiculous, and completely unforgettable. Inside the palace, chandeliers sparkle over parquet floors and mirrored halls reflect sunlight from every angle. But leave the gold behind and head south. Because deeper inland, in a forest town built for royalty, another palace hides something even more precious. It doesn't look real. The facade is baby blue, trimmed with white and gold. Dozens of windows gleam in the light. And inside, a single room that became one of the greatest mysteries of World War II. This is the Catherine Palace, located in Tsarskoye Selo, outside St. Petersburg. It was the summer residence of Empress Elizabeth and later Catherine the Great. Step into the amber room and you will understand why it is legendary. Walls covered in amber panels, mirrors, candles, gold leaf. It was considered the eighth wonder of the world. But during World War II, the Nazis looted the amber room. It vanished completely. To this day, no one knows where the original panels went. The version you see now is a reconstruction based on old photos and fragments, but it is no less breathtaking. Walk the halls, and it is easy to imagine powdered wigs, court dances, and imperial whispers. Outside, manicured gardens stretch into forests, and swan ponds reflect the fading light. And far from the tourists, deep in a northern lake, monks once carved their own spiritual empire into the wilderness. You can't drive here. To reach Valam, you have to cross water. Lake Ladoga, to be exact, the largest lake in Europe. Set on a forested archipelago, the Valam monastery rises from pine trees like something out of a painting. Red stone, blue domes, echoes of chanting carried by wind. Founded over 1,000 years ago, Valam became a spiritual retreat, a place where monks lived in silence, grew their own food, and studied theology far from the world. Even during Soviet times, when religion was repressed, Valam survived. Today, it is more than just a functioning monastery. It is a symbol of endurance. The island is quiet, peaceful. Deer walk through the forests. Pilgrims come barefoot down pine trails. At night, the lake reflects stars so clearly it feels like floating in space. It is hard to believe this is still Russia, the same country with palaces and trains and megacities. But that is the story of Russia. Just when you think you have understood it, something completely different appears. Like an island of wooden miracles floating further to the north. No nails, no steel, just wood. And yet the churches of Kiji Island in the middle of Lake Onega have stood for over 300 years. The Church of the Transfiguration is the centerpiece, a wooden masterpiece with 22 domes, each covered in silver aspen shingles that shimmer like fish scales in the light. It was built in 1740, without a single nail. Legend says the builder used one axe, and when he was done, he threw it into the lake so no one could copy him. But this isn't just one church. It is part of an open-air museum, preserving Russia's northern wooden architecture, houses, barns, mills, all brought here from nearby villages. You can walk through them, see how peasants once lived, and hear folk songs sung in dialects that barely exist anymore. In winter, the lake freezes solid. In summer, it comes alive with birdsong and gentle waves. Kizi is delicate, humble, sacred. And just a few hours away lies something far more dramatic, a marble canyon filled with water. Near the Finnish border, hidden among forests, lies Ruskiala Marble Canyon, a flooded quarry turned into one of the most surreal natural parks in Russia. The marble here was once used to decorate St. Isaac's Cathedral in St. Petersburg. Now, the old quarry is filled with water, crystal clear, glowing blue-green. Cliffs rise on all sides, and walking trails wrap around the edge. In summer, tourists kayak or dive from the rocks. In winter, the canyon freezes into a glowing ice palace, and guides take visitors deep inside marble caves lit by lanterns. But Ruskiala isn't just beautiful, it is peaceful. It is the kind of place where time slows, where the sound of dripping water echoes through stone halls and sunlight filters through pine needles like stained glass. It feels forgotten, in the best way, and once you leave its cliffs behind, the road heads west again, to one of the oldest cities in Russia, with stories carved into every wall. Long before Moscow, there was Novgorod. Founded in the 9th century, this was once the center of power in ancient Rus, and at its heart stands the Novgorod Kremlin, or Detnets, the oldest Kremlin in Russia, built of red brick and surrounded by thick walls that still watch over the Volkhov River. Inside the walls, the Cathedral of St. Sophia stands proud, its silver domes aged by centuries of sun and snow. Built in 1045, it is one of the oldest surviving churches in the country. Novgorod was different. While other Russian cities were ruled by princes or czars, Novgorod was governed by a republic, a council of merchants, craftsmen, and elders who debated law in the city square. Art thrived here. So did writing. Thousands of birch bark manuscripts were discovered in the soil, everyday letters and messages scratched by hand, now priceless artifacts of medieval life. Walk the fortress walls at sunset, and you can feel it. This city is quieter than others. But it remembers everything. And far to the west, along the Baltic coast, another landscape waits. Shaped not by rulers or stone, but by sand, wind, and time. It is narrow, just a sliver of land, stretching nearly 100 kilometers, 62 miles between the Baltic Sea and Curonian Lagoon. But the Curonian Spit is one of the strangest and most beautiful landscapes in Russia. A UNESCO World Heritage Site shared with Lithuania, it is a living sculpture of sand dunes, pine forests, and migrating birds. Some dunes are over 60 meters high, about 200 feet, and they move slowly with the wind, swallowing forests and reshaping the land each year. Locals call it the dancing forest because in one section, the trees twist into spirals and loops, bent by wind, salt, and mystery. But this land has seen more than nature. During Soviet times, radar stations and secret listening posts were hidden in the trees. Now, only foundations remain, buried in sand. The Curonian spit is fragile. In some places, it is only 400 meters wide, less than a quarter mile. And one strong storm could change it forever. And at the far end of the spit lies a city unlike any other in Russia. Because it is not really in Russia at all. You cross a border, the signs change. And suddenly, you are in Kaliningrad, a Russian city surrounded by Poland, Lithuania, and the European Union. This is an exclave, a piece of Russia completely cut off from the rest. But Kaliningrad has never been ordinary. It was once called Königsberg, part of Prussia, home to philosophers like Immanuel Kant. You can still visit his grave near the old cathedral, standing beside modern buildings and Soviet-era blocks. The architecture is a collage: German Gothic, Russian brutalism, European postmodernism, and somewhere in between, a new identity forming. Walk along the Pragolya River and you will find the Amber Museum, housed in an old German fort. The Baltic Sea is rich with amber, fossilized tree resin, and Kaliningrad is its capital. Locals feel both Russian and not. There is a different rhythm here, a different history, a different future. And for many, Kaliningrad is the end of the journey. But for others, the journey is the story. One written across 9,000 kilometers of track. It begins in Moscow, and it doesn't stop until the Pacific Ocean. The Trans-Siberian Railway is the longest railway line in the world, stretching 9,289 kilometers, or about 5,072 miles, from Moscow to Vladivostok. 7 time zones, dozens of cities, thousands of stories. It crosses forests, rivers, mountains, and borders, a moving thread that stitches Russia together from end to end. Some people ride it all at once, 7 days without leaving the train. Others get off, explore, return. In a way, it isn't just a train, it is a state of mind. You will share cabins with strangers, hear lullabies of steel on rail, drink tea in glass mugs held by silver holders. And outside your window, the scenery changes like turning pages in a book. Birch forests, icy lakes, empty plains, then cities pulsing with light. It is the only way to truly feel the scale of Russia. And after everything you have seen, from volcanoes to palaces, deserts to domes, it all comes together here. One journey, one country, endless wonders. We crossed 11 time zones, from frozen volcanoes to golden palaces, from deserts hidden in snow to cities older than history. And somehow, we never left one country. Russia isn't just vast, it is impossible to define. And even after all this, we have only scratched the surface. Thank you for joining the journey on Vistas Revealed. See you in the next one.